Hi everyone. In this video, I'm just going to go through the lecture prac exercise. So the objective was to do data wrangling. So not so much do it yourself, but identify any potential issues in your data. So you basically needed to start off with doing some exploration. So here is your step one from your notes. So you're going to make use of these functions such as class, dimension, names, and so on, just to get familiar with your data. You can see which ones you deem to be relevant. You don't have to do each and every single one. So you'll see that I specifically wanted to see a summary, and I also decided I wanted to see a preview of the data with details. I didn't do every single one because I thought these would be the most meaningful for this particular problem. So you can use your own intuition and see in practice what works best. So remember, the nice thing about the summary function, it gives you these overall stats, but it also will tell you if you have outliers. And then I picked the string one because it tells me whether I have a factor or character or numbers stored in that column. So that's how I made my decision. And you can get more or less similar information from some of the other columns. And then after you've done some of that stuff, you can use all these other functions as well. You'll see that in the memo I also used print, and the reason why I used print this time is because my data set was not large. So remember, this warning is basically saying watch out if your data set is big. Mine is tiny, so I thought it was okay to print. So then after that, you can see if there's sense to using a histogram and so on. In this particular one, I just wanted you to pick up on potential issues. So if you are continuing in the data wrangling process, then you'll also want to check that you also have tidy data. So these are the 3 bullet points. Make sure each observation is saved in its own line, each variable is saved in its own column, and each cell contains a single value. And then now you also want to verify that you have the correct variable types as well. So you want to check that numbers are stored as numbers, classes or categorical variables are stored as factors. So that's something you can check using the class variable, but I'll show you how I did it. I didn't actually use the class variable. You can check dates, and then you also want to check for missing values, special values, and lastly, you'll also want to check for any outliers. And the method we use in this course is just the box plot. So you don't have to do anything more complicated that you might have learned in first year. Just do a box plot, and it's very simple. You just do box plot, and then you specify your data. And this is an option that lets you determine if you want it to be horizontal or vertical. So you'll see in mine it's vertical. So let's quickly have a look at the questions and show you the output. So you're given this data set containing 20 observations, and then now we had to identify, okay, where is data wrangling needed? So ideally, we just want to identify are there any issues and then suggest solutions for how we would address those issues. So if you go to R, you want to load the data set. So you load the read R package, and then you load it up. Perfect. And then you can import your data set, and it appears here, and you also get a first glimpse of the columns here as well. But we want to make use of the functions that we've learned. So the first one that I chose to use was string str. Oh, str is for structure, not string. So I want to see the structure of the car seats data. So if you run it, then you see here it tells you which observations are stored in what type of data type. So one thing that jumped out at me is this column that said sales. If you go back to your question paper and you look at your sales column, sales is unit sales in thousands, so it's supposed to be numeric. So that's something that you should have noted for your sales. Okay, so that's the first issue that we're seeing there. The others look fine, but here I'm also seeing that shelf lock, which is categorical, urban, and US, are not stored as factors. They are stored as character strings as well. So that's something that the practitioner would want to then convert to a factor. So far that's kind of what I could pick up from here. Nothing too new. we can move on. Then I decided, okay, let's use summary. So when I use the summary function, then it gives me now my averages, and as expected, the sales column is a problem, and the other ones that are not factors, but we picked up that already. So if you look at the numerical ones, you can just scan over the values to see if there's anything peculiar. And the first thing I can observe is that there are missing values in some of the columns. So you can just note which columns have missing values. And then also here, this population is minus 425, which doesn't make sense. So that is something that would need to be investigated. And then if we go now to your memo, let's have a look and see if we've not picked up everything already that I identified. So yes. Oh, I made a general observation. So this one I decided to print all the data because remember I said it's a small data set. So you can print everything, or you can double click here and it's going to open up over here as well. So you can immediately see some of the things jumping out at you. So just scanning it, you can pick up other things that we hadn't yet picked up earlier. So if you look column by column, let's look at my string output here. I think my output from printing. Here in the sales column, there's text, and then there's also missing data. And then we notice that there's a lot of missing observations. So observation 20 has a lot of missing observations, so maybe you want to remove it because there's might be very difficult to now do anything with this person here. And then everything seems fine in the other columns. We'll notice other missing values and that negative that we picked up on earlier. And then something else that is here. Let me quickly see if it came up in our other output. It didn't. Something else that we should do here. Let's try this shelf lock. I'm realizing I didn't add code for this, but what if we turn it into a factor? I want to see if we'll pick up on something that I picked up on. So specifically, I want that column, $ shelf lock factor, and then you'll see here it gives you some of the first row. So remember, it's bad, good, medium, medium. So bad, good, medium, medium. And then something that you also pick up on now in here is if you check what are your levels. Remember, we were told that the levels in the question were supposed to be bad, good, or medium. So just 3. But here we have 4 of them: bad, good, medium, and median. So there is a typo in one of the columns, which is here in one of the values. So this is something you'd need to go and correct. So that's how you can check what you have. Okay, and then I think the other data, you'll see here there's a full stop, and here there's a comma where it should have been those categories, and you probably would have picked it up in the same way, even though I didn't add it to my final memo. So if we just quickly look at the final memo, let's see together if we picked up everything that I listed. So you might find other things. These are the things that I identified. So we did pick up that there was observation 20 was missing the majority of information, and then a possible solution would be dropping that observation altogether because there's too much missing data. And then in the sales column, remember it was stored as a character instead of numeric, so you'd want to convert it to the correct format. We noticed that it contained text, so remember the word hi was in there, so you'd want to attend to that, maybe remove it, or you could try use imputation to put an estimate of what that value should have been. And then you also have missing values as well in that column indicated by those NAs. Then for the next column, for computer price, there are 2 outliers. We didn't pick that up at this stage, but it's picked up in the box plot. In the next question, you'll see you have 2 circles that are outside of your box plot. So therefore, these are their 2 outliers. So if you have outliers, you will usually want to fix them or replace them. You just need to investigate them further. Then in our population, we already picked up that it was negative, so you can use the absolute value function in order to correct it, or maybe there's another way. You just want to investigate it. And then for Shavlov, we picked up on the spelling error as well. And then we did pick up from my previous results that it was stored as a character instead of a factor. So there were no factors in the original data. Then for urban and US, remember we noticed the full stop and the comma. And then same thing, urban and US. Let's quickly scroll back up. Those are categorical, so they're made up of categories, so they should have been stored as factors instead of character strings. So data stored as characters should be converted to factor. And then lastly, you said plot a box plot of computer price. So it's very easy. Box plot, and then you put the column that you want. And then based on the box plot, how many outliers are present? We did 2. And then list 2 possible reasons why outliers may occur in a data set. And you'll find these in your note. One of them is measurement error. So there's an error in the tools that you're using to measure the observation, or data entry. So maybe the person who is entering the values made a mistake there as well. So basically, that is what I was looking for. You just had to pick up on everything ideally, and if there's anything else, do let me know. But that is basically what I wanted you to be able to do. I hope this helps. Good luck.